Okay, the second topic, also very interesting halacha l'maisa, is if chicken is considered meat. We know that mid'oraisa, the laws of basar b'chalav do not apply to chicken, according to most Tanoim. There's an opinion of Rabbi Yossi Haglili that it would apply, but we paskin no, chicken. The laws of basar b'chalav do not apply to chicken, even though ordinarily we do not make a gezerah legezerah. Nevertheless, you're not. There's a halacha that you have to wait after you eat chicken before you have milk, even though it's a gezerah legezerah. What are we worried about? Worried that you're going to come to cook it, even if I cook it, or even if I eat it together, it's only nisir d'Rabbanan. That may not be a gezerah legezerah because of the mixability, the easy mixability between chicken and meat. But let's see, what would the nafkamina be if chicken is considered meat? The main nafkamina would be whether you're yotzei the mitzvah of simchas yamtif with chicken. There is a mitzvah d'oraisa to have meat on yamtif. Okay, there is a mitzvah d'oraisa to have meat on yamtif. I know nowadays it's become a thing. Sometimes people have milchik meals. It's highly questionable. You're being mavatel a mitzvah d'oraisa. Even on Shavuos, it's not simple. You could have a meal just of milk. Could you do that? You're being mavatel, not a chiyuv. Wine is a chiyuv. Wine is obligatory. Wine is an obligation, as a chiyuv, the Shulchan Aruch says. Meat is a mitzvah. So are you yotzei the mitzvah of basar with chicken? That's the shaila. So the Gemara Nun Daled Amud Beis brings a machlokes. The Gemara says that hanoider min habasar aser b'chol minei basar aser b'roish u'raglayim u'v'kana u'v'kaved u'v'lev u'ba'oifos. You're aser in chicken, in fowl, but mutter b'basar dar mechagam. Rishon Gamliel oimer no. Hanoider min habasar aser b'chol minei basar u'mutter b'roish u'raglayim u'v'kana u'v'kaved u'v'lev u'v'oifos. So you have a machlokes between the Tanakama and Rav Shimon Gamliel whether chicken is considered meat or not, but at least according to the Tanakama, the Chachamim, it is considered meat. So the question is, does this have any bearing on the topic? So let's see. The Rambam paskins in Hilchos Malachim Perek Tes Halach Yud Aleph. Echad ha'ever oyabasar ha'poresh min ha'behema oy min ha'chaya. The yisur of ever min ha'chay is a limb or meat that separates from an animal or a wild animal. Aval ha'oif, but a chicken, a bird, yirali she'ein ben noyach nerag al ever min ha'chay mimenu. Says the Rambam, it would seem to me that a ben noyach is not chayiv, won't be killed, for a limb that separates from a fowl. Now the Rambam is mashma, a Jew would not be allowed to have ever min ha'chay from an oif, but a ben noyach would not be nerag alav. And the Ravid says, on the first line of the Rambam, echad ha'ever oy habasar ha'porish min ha'behema oy min ha'chaya, the Ravid adds umin ha'oif, that for Yisrael there's ever min ha'chay from a chicken. But then the Ravid says oymer Avram nirali shazet to'asoifer v'roy lios aval hasharetz. Says the Ravid, I think it's a ta'as sofer in the Rambam. That when the Rambam says a ben noach is not nerag on Ivra min ha'chai from an oif, how could that be? What would the difference be? But the Rambam, it must be a mistake. It must be a printer's error. It means a sheretz ein ben noach. The way to read the Rambam is echad ha'ever ayabasar ha'porish min ha'behema ay min ha'chaya ay min ha'oif. The Ravid adds. But of course, our gerson, the Rambam, is that the Rambam is saying no, not of an oif. And the Netziv is troubled. Is there a way to answer the simple, or understand the simple reading of the Rambam? The Gemara that we just learned on Daled Amud Beis says the machlokes of Tanakama and Rav Shimon Gamliel is The Tanakama holds that since a shliach would come back and say, I didn't find basar behema, but I found basar oif, that indicates that when you say basar behema, you include basar oif. So look how the Netziv understands this. It says in Netziv, Mizeh yishavnu das harambam, de ben noach ino nerag al iver min achai b'basar oif. With this, we could explain the opinion of the Rambam that a ben noach is not chayiv on iver min achai from a fowl. Mishum de ben noach loy talya b'lashon Torah, ela b'lashon b'nei adam, va'oif loy mikri basar. Says in the Tziv, there's a difference between the Isser of Eiver Menachai to a Yisrael and Eiver Menachai by a guy. Eiver Menachai by Yisrael goes by Lashon HaTorah. Eiver Menachai by a guy goes by Lashon B'nei Adam. Therefore, by a Ben Noach, where it's Tali in Lashon B'nei Adam, Oif is not called Basar. So oif is not called basar b'lashon b'nei adam, so therefore they're not chayev. I guess that would be going according to is that according to Rabbi Akiva or Rav Shimon Gamliel? Rav Shimon Gamliel says it does not include oif, but then Netziv is saying that the nafkamina between Ben Yisrael and a Ben Noach is by a Ben Noach, it goes by Lashon B'nei Adam, which is somewhat of a question. Why? Why would that be? The Isser is not by the vernacular, the Isser is by the Torah. So even though they weren't given 630 mitzvahs, but they still have to observe the mitzvah of the Torah, so why would it be dependent on the way people speak as opposed to the inherent definition of what basar is? But that's how he understands it. The difference, in other words, the question the Ravid has in the Rambam is, what difference would it make between a Ben Noach and a Yisrael? Either a chicken is meat or a chicken is not meat. So the Tziv says no. By a Ben Yisrael, it goes by Lashon HaTorah. By a Ben Noach, it goes by Lashon B'nei Adam. And oif is not called basar b'Lashon B'nei Adam. But b'Lashon HaTorah, oif is called basar. Seems like the Netziv says this is going according to the opinion of the source that Eiver Menachai is asar is from the pasuk Basar benavshay damai loy soichelu. Somehow the Netziv is interpreting that we go by the definition of Basar b'Lashon B'nei Adam. It's interesting, Lamaisa, when it comes to, I would have said the opposite. From this Gemara you see that Lashon B'nei Adam, we do call Basar Oif. Oif is called Basar. That's how we paskin. We paskin like Rabbi Akiva, the Ran says, that since the Shliach would be Mimlach, and he would take Basar Oif, so it is called Basar. But I would say B'Lashon HaTorah, it's not necessarily called Basar. The Gemara in Chagiga says that on the pasuk V'samachta b'chagecha, it includes kol minei simchos l'simcha. Mikan amru chachamim Yisrael yotzin dei chayvasan b'nedarm v'nedavos u'v'maiser behema v'kayhanim b'chatas v'asham u'bebechar u'v'chazav v'shaik. So the Gemara says that a Jew is yotzei with nedarim, with nedavos, with maiser behema, and kayhanim with chatas and asham. So I would think even oifais and menachais. So therefore it says v'samachta b'chagecha, from which we learn out you're only yotzei simcha if you could bring a carbon chagiga. If you can't bring a carbon chagiga from it, you're not yotzei simcha. So Rav Ashi says from v'samachta we learn out, as opposed to other things that have no simcha. Meaning the Gemara says, your yoytzei, your chiyuv bin Nedarm and Nedavis ma'aseh behema kaihanim mechatois, your yoytzei the mitzvah of simcha. I would think with an oif, no, v'samachta b'chagecha, only if you could bring a karma chagiga. Rav Ashi says, no, these things don't have simcha. Oif does not have simcha. That means according to Rav Ashi, there's no simcha b'basar oif. The Rambam also paskins, you're not yoytzei simchas, the simcha of a samachta b'chagecha, with basar oif. Chavos Yair also says, Sim Kuf Ayin Ches, that even though you're allowed to shecht chicken on Yom Tif because of simcha, you're only yoytzei simcha kitzas, even though you're not yoytzei the mitzvah of simchas Yom Tif. In other words, Chavos Yair paskins, you're not yoytzei simchas Yom Tif, but you could shecht a bird on Yom Tif. So it seems to be an open and closed question, because the Gemara says explicitly, you're not yoytzei simcha with oif. Yatsu elu she'ein bahem simcha. Right? According to that, if let's say you have chicken on a Yom Tov meal, your wife might as well make lasagna, because you're not mekayim simchas Yom Tov anyway. That's what it would seem. The Yad Ephraim, Zar Margolis, brings the Chavos Yair, and he says, no, I disagree. The Gemara and the Gemara is talking about whether you're yoytzei shalmei simcha. There's a mitzvah of shalmei simcha. So you're not yoytzei shalmei simcha with birds. But simchas Yom Tiv, the Gemara talks about if whether you designated the doves in the dove cut, and the Gemara says if we're going to be strict, we're gonna cause a diminution in simchas Yom Tiv. That means the Gemara in Chagiga is talking about Shalmei Simcha. Simchas Yom Tiv, that's Simchas Yom Tiv. So the Shevet HaLevi writes, you have to say that even though it's not Simcha Gemura b'Basar Oif, there is some Simcha. But more than that, the Yad Ephraim is saying, you're yoytzei the mitzvah of Simchas Yom Tiv. The Shevet HaLevi paskins, the minog is, we are not mahader on basar behema, not like the Chavos Yair. The Darkei Tshuva brings from the Divrei Chaim that no, you have to have meat. Chicken's not going to cut it. Lamai, so what do you do? Do you have to have meat, or it could be yotzei with chicken? It's machlekes haposkim. Lamai, so what's amazing is it's a dairaisa. It's a suffix dairaisa. So Yeshal mi lismach to have chicken, but everyone agrees meat is better, and you could make the case safek daraisa l'chumra. Are you yotzei with lasagna? No. So what should you do on Shavuos? L'chayra, the best of both worlds is if you want to have milchik, you start off with a little milchik, and then you have meat to be mekayim the mitzvah d'oraisa, basar. That's what I do. I don't have milchik meals. Okay, everyone, have a good day. Bracha v'atzlacha. Kol tov.